So the students have the assignment sheet, which is DJ Intro. They'll also have this sheet, which is a page of information on digital signal processing, which is called DSP. So I'll open up this page here, and you'll see what it'll show you is how to add on to the digital signal processing in GarageBand. Digital signal processing is exactly what it is. The signal is the audio file, or any signal, but in this case it's audio, and we're processing it digitally. So there's a couple of ways that you could do that in GarageBand, and you can see how you get to it. Some of the older versions of GarageBand look a little different. Some of the newer ones actually look a little different than this, but basically we're not using the master and echo and reverb because that goes on the master track. So we're going to be doing things on the track. So when you add something in DSP to the track, you're adding it across the entire track. So you're going to see there's a couple of things here which are called echo and reverb, echo, modulation effects called chorus, flanger, phaser, which are some of the most popular ones, and pitch transformer, and I'll talk to you about that, and something called the EQ sweep. And when they hear that, they'll say, oh, I know what that is. So this is just that sheet that gives you basic information. So this is here for them to refer to after I do the demo. So what is the demo? I'm so glad you asked. So I'll go down and open up GarageBand. Let's take a look, please. So I'll show you what I do with them to show the demo. So I'll ask the kids to open up their file and make sure that they have some sort of spoken word. If they don't have a spoken word, I might ask them to go to the loop library, and they can go to this thing called vocals, and here it comes any second, and you just choose one of these. Baby! Either make sure it's not one that is processed like that. I'd have to go through it to find one that works, but you just want, I think Byron is has some, is he here? There he is. Yeah. It's kind of dry, right? So there's not a lot going on. It's just dry vocals. It means there's not a lot of digital signal processing. You don't hear reverb, you don't hear echo, you don't hear effects, things like that. So by this time, by this stage of the game, they probably should have some of this stuff in here, which is the voiceover files that I gave them. They might even have their own voiceover in there that they can work with, but the idea right now is that they're going to have at least one spoken word or sung word, very dry signal, and we're going to work with one track, and we're going to experiment. So what I do is we do what we call speed dating with DSP. So what's speed dating? You basically get exposed to something and you have a few minutes to interact with it, and then we go to the next something. So we're going to do speed dating with DSP, and I'm going to demonstrate to you how I do that. One of the first things you want to start with is this is how you find digital signal processing on the track. So I pick a track, and then I go up here to these smart controls. I think that's what they call them, smart controls. And what I want to look at here is the I for the information. That is the track information. And I'll scroll down to show you what's going on. Actually, I can pull this up. That's even better, right? If you didn't know that, you can click and hold and pull this window up and down. Don't worry about this business in here. I'm really concentrating on what's going on in here. This is the master echo, and even though it's selected, really nothing's happening because it's at 0. So we're just going to leave that alone. I tell the kids, do not use the master echo and reverb. We're going to be talking about echo and reverb, and we'll get there in a minute. But what they're going to wind up doing is literally clicking in here and adding a plugin. So if you click in this little gray area, see how you get a pull-down menu? You'll get this little toggle here. I'll click and I'll go to put in a reverb or an echo. So let's start with reverb, and reverb is short for reverberation. So I'll ask the kids, what is reverb? What is reverberation? What are we reverberating in? And reverb is really your room simulating. You're simulating a room. So if I went to the SilverVerb and I asked my students, please choose the SilverVerb, only use the SilverVerb. There's lots of fun stuff and all this other stuff, but I want to show them how to use basic parameters. So here we are in the SilverVerb setting, and you can expand this if you like and get this going in here like that. And here we go. So you'll notice there's factory default settings, and there are also, just so you know, save as, because you make your own settings and save it. And there's also, just watch this, there's the copy and the paste. So once I make some settings and I go to copy it, I can actually paste it in another reverb on a different track. I'll go back to that later. There's also presets, and presets will give you different settings. So let's take a look at this. So the room size, this is in meters. 70 cubic meters is a pretty big room. So let's just take a listen to, I want to solo the track that it's on. A couple of things. One is, this is the power switch. I'm going to turn it off. And this is where this little cycle area comes in handy. I'm just going to use the last one here because the idea is that I want to hear the initial signal and then what happens after the signal. So I'm soloing this track. Here it is.
4.
Let's do it again. Sorry, raise the volume. And
4.
now as that's off, let's hear what it sounds like with this, the default setting right out of the box.
4.
Yeah, that's a lot.
4.
Right, so room size. So let's chill with the room size, right? Get it down, I don't know, pick something, 20 or so.
4.
And of course you can double click in here, right? And hit return or tab.
4.
That's it. There's also a bit of a ping that has to do with this density in here. There's only 4 parameters here: room size, density, dry, wet, parameters. We're talking about parameters of digital signal processing.
4.
So there's a little bit of a twing.
4.
Okay, we get that.
4.
Now, most audio engineers will not listen to the reverb independent of anything else that's going on in the mix. They want to hear it sit in the mix. I like to hear what it sounds like soloed and then in the mix. So I'm just showing you, since this is speed dating with digital signal processing, we're just doing it raw on this one track, not in the mix with everything else.
4.
Great, so you can play with that. So what does room size do?
4. 4.
Because you're making a bigger and larger room. And I talk to the kids, I say, look, what's the difference between this classroom or if you talk inside a closet, a coat closet that's full? It's a lot drier, right? Everything absorbs the sound. What if you talk in this classroom and you go to a gymnasium? What's the difference in the sound? What's the difference in the cafeteria? What's the difference in a church? What's the difference in a canyon when you speak? This all has to do with the size and the reflection of sound across the room. That's really all I get into with them. Now, these two parameters, dry signal and wet signal, are always the case in all digital signal processing. It doesn't always look like dry and wet. It looks like something called the mix of dry and wet, but here we have dry and wet. Dry is the original signal. So if I said dry 100% and wet 0, wet is all of this processing inside the reverb unit, or any unit that it's in. So if I said 100% dry and 0% wet, what's my 4 going to sound like?
4.
It's going to sound as if I turned it off because I'm not doing any processing. What if I said 0 dry and 100% wet? All I'm going to get is the processing.
4.
And you'll notice it happens after the initial sound should be. Take a listen.
4.
Again, I'm just going to hit play here.
4.
Right, I'll give you a little more space.
4.
And now here's the dry signal by itself, wet.
4.
Good. So what I'll do is I'll show students this. So what's the mix? You probably want some pretty good dry signal. How much wet? I don't know. You got to play with that.
4. 4. 4.
Now you got to be careful because most kids, they'll want to overdo it. All right, whatever. We don't really care right now. They're experimenting. So I will show them. I will say, look, this is how you get to the reverb. This is what a reverb unit is. These are your 4 parameters and how they work. Dry and wet signal. Hear it? Ready? On your mark, get set, go. And they have 2 minutes to play with just the reverb unit. And I go around the room and I make sure that they've put in the SilverVerb and that they're playing with and looking at what the parameters are in the SilverVerb unit. And that's how we do the first one, the SilverVerb. The next video, I'm going to go through a few of these together.